It started out as an ordinary love story, but it ended where love shouldn't be. In the end, you will find out how everything turned out unexpectedly, so stay until the end. She slid the plate across the table with her left hand, fingers trembling just slightly, the rim knocking once against the edge of my fork. The food was fine, maybe too fine. Steamed vegetables, salmon dusted with dill. Normally, she hated the smell of fish, but tonight she didn't even blink. I watched her for a second too long, then made a joke about the switch-up. Something dumb like, "You a lefty now?" Her laugh was small, too small. Not the belly-deep chuckle I fell for. It stuck to the walls like wet paper, thin and forgettable. Then she vanished into the kitchen before I could pull anything real out of her. It was 3 days later, drawing with our daughter on the hardwood floor, that the trap door cracked open. She held up a lopsided rainbow and said, "Mom says he has a mole on his tummy, just like Daddy." My stomach nodded. I stayed light, said, "Who does?" She reached for a red crayon, like this wasn't a bomb she just lobbed into the room, and mumbled, "The funny man with the deer tattoo." I don't remember breathing after that. I didn't even ask more. Didn't press. Just nodded, smiled, praised the picture. My voice felt hollow coming out of me. That night I waited until Gina hit the shower. Steam rolled out from beneath the bathroom door, thick like smoke from something long burning. Her robe was slung over the chair. I went through the pockets. No reason not to. No excuse not to. That's when I found it. Folded tight, like someone meant for it to be kept close. The handwriting wasn't hers, it wasn't mine. Just one line. "You smell like escape." I stood there holding it while the water ran, and the tiles in that room whispered betrayal. I swear I could feel something crack beneath my ribs. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I folded it back, tucked it into a folder I'd start calling truth in my mind. A week passed, maybe two, and I played normal. Went to work, kissed her forehead, took the trash out, but I started noticing little shifts. She started washing her hair every night. Gina never did that. She used to go 2-3 days. Said she liked the way it settled after a day of living. Now she scrubbed it like she was trying to erase fingerprints. There was a scratch beneath her ear, one she said came from trimming the rose bushes. But the roses were dead. I'd clipped them myself last fall. I needed more. I needed to push. So on a quiet Saturday, I made it a family game night. "Let's play word association," I said, all charm. My daughter was thrilled. She was just happy we weren't watching TV. I tossed out a few easy ones. Cloud, apple, teacher. Then came the bait. Secret. Gina flinched. Just a split-second twitch in the cheek, the way her breath hitched. Eyes darted to the hallway like she expected someone to walk in. No one did, and I didn't say a damn thing about it. Later that night, after bedtime stories and a half glass of wine, I proposed something harmless. "Let's play 10 questions, I said, crawling into bed beside her. Her back was to me, shoulders tense. She nodded. We traded some boring stuff. Favorite childhood toy, dream vacation. Then I landed it. "When's the last time you lied to me?" I said it casually, like it didn't matter. Like it was just another roll of the dice. She laughed. Nervous. Too loud. Didn't answer. And that was the loudest truth she could have given me. The next morning I stood in the garage staring at the shelves, eyes scanning for something, anything, that might give her away. That's when I remembered the letter. Not the note, the letter. An idea hit me like ice water. Something theatrical, something that would make her blink. So on our anniversary, I handed her a sealed envelope. Cream-colored, heavy. Inside was a letter from a stranger, a man who claimed to watch her, to know her scent, to know the sound she makes when she stretches in the morning. She read it at the table, fork suspended halfway to her mouth. Her face went pale. She looked at me like I'd just ripped the roof off the house. "What is this?" she asked. I just leaned back in my chair, kept my tone flat. "You betrayed me," I said, "but I'm not the same man anymore." She cried, not loud, not sobbing, just silent streaks down her cheeks as she pushed back her chair and left the room. She never asked who the man was, because she knew. She didn't know the real twist, that my brother, a PI who owed me a favor, had been tracking her for weeks. And at that exact moment, he was sitting in an attorney's office, sliding over recorded calls. I'd only heard one of them. One was enough. Her voice soft and intimate, breathing just above a whisper. He doesn't feel anything. He's already dead inside. I didn't feel dead. I felt radioactive, alive in a way that burned. The night after that, I took the kids to a charity event. Bright lights, sticky fingers, balloon animals. We ate cotton candy and took photos next to a guy dressed as a pirate. And then I saw her, Gina, not 10 yards away with him. The deer tattoo was impossible to miss. He had his arm around her waist, fingers playing with her belt loop. She laughed, then leaned in and licked the back of his spoon like they were in a movie only they could see. I didn't say a word. I just grabbed the kids and left, knuckles white around the stroller handle. Back at the house, I dropped to the floor in the kitchen. My body gave out before my brain could catch up. The kids thought I was playing. My son wrapped a blanket around me. My daughter laid her head on my lap and whispered, "You smell like home." That's when something shifted, not like forgiveness, not like strength, something colder, something useful. Because I knew then, I wasn't going to confront her. I was going to become the ghost inside our life. The next morning, I didn't kiss her goodbye. I poured my coffee, let the door close behind me without looking back, and sat in my truck until the engine rattled into rhythm. But I didn't drive to work. Not that day. Instead, I drove to an old storage unit I hadn't opened in years. Inside was a folding chair, a rusted desk lamp, and 3 milk crates filled with things I hadn't thought about since college. Journals, backup hard drives, even a cassette player from a failed band phase. I sat for an hour without moving, just listening to the creak of the metal walls, feeling the dust settle into my sleeves. I started keeping track that week, not just of her, but of everything. How long she spent in the shower, what time she left for errands, how many times she checked her phone during dinner. I noticed she started locking the bathroom door. She never used to. I found a burner phone hidden in a pair of rain boots in the garage. I didn't touch it. Not yet. Let her think the lie still breathed, undisturbed. The illusion gave her comfort, and that comfort was ammunition. By Thursday, the patterns started forming like bruises under the skin. She used to hum while she cleaned. Not anymore. She walked differently now, shoulders hunched, like guilt was stitching her spine together. I took the kids to the library while she claimed to be shopping. I checked the GPS history on her car. Her last destination was a bar 2 towns over. Midday. I printed it, added it to the folder. That night, while she scrolled on her phone and pretended not to notice me beside her, I went over every detail from the day. I wasn't Logan anymore, not the way she remembered me. I stopped asking questions, stopped trying to pull truth out of her mouth like rotten teeth. Instead, I began erasing myself from the old blueprint and rebuilding someone else in the hollow. A week later, I suggested we play another game. Something to reconnect, I said. She offered a weak smile. Said sure. I called it reflection. We each had to answer a question about the other person. Something small. She asked my favorite movie. I lied. Said The Big Chill. It was actually No Country for Old Men, but I didn't want her to recognize anything familiar. Then I asked her, "What's the last dream you remember?" She flinched again, not visibly, not like before, but I felt it. The pulse at her neck jumped. "Falling," she said. "I dreamed I was falling." Her hand twitched near her glass. She wasn't holding it, but the motion gave her away. She wanted something in her hands, something to ground her. I made sure her wine glass was empty. Later that night, after she'd passed out on the couch, I snuck into the bathroom. The robe wasn't hanging from the door, but her purse was slumped beside the sink. Inside, I found a receipt for 2 glasses of Pinot Noir. The date matched the day she told me she had a dentist appointment. I laughed without humor and looked up at the mirror. My face stared back, calm and foreign. The next morning, I left her a note instead of a kiss. It said, "We should try being honest for 1 full day. Just 1. When she read it, she looked at me like I'd just spoken in a language she didn't know. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. I brought the kids to the park that Saturday. We watched a clown make balloon animals while I tried to imagine what Gina was doing back home. That's when it hit me. She wasn't cheating out of love or lust or even loneliness. She was chasing something uglier, something that made her feel powerful. The lie gave her control. The secrecy made her feel chosen. That evening, I changed everything. I showered with a different cologne, switched to a deeper voice when I spoke to her, colder cadence, moved differently, more silent, less predictable. She asked if I was feeling all right. I said I was tired. That was the first real answer I gave her in weeks. The next day, she checked the security camera feeds for the first time in years. I installed those cameras, every one of them. She thought she was protecting herself from something out there. She never imagined the thing she should have feared was already inside. I began altering the background noise on our bedroom Alexa. Just small things, replacing wind sounds with barely audible voices. One night, I recorded her lover saying, "Your husband will never notice." It played on loop for 6 minutes before she bolted upright in bed. She asked if I heard something strange. I looked up from a book and said no. Went back to reading. She stared at the device like it had grown teeth. By the end of that week, she started sleeping in the guest room again. Said she wasn't feeling well. I nodded. Left her there. Sat on the living room floor with my son and daughter, piecing together a Lego castle while she pretended to be a ghost behind a door she could barely close anymore. I was almost ready. I just needed one last piece. So I took the burner phone from the rain boot, sat in the garage under flickering light, and started scrolling. Messages, photos. One of them was a picture of her asleep. Not in our bed. The tattooed man's arm curled around her bare waist. He wrote, "She talks about you when she dreams." I stared at that line longer than I should have. Not because it hurt, because it didn't. The next day I made dinner. Steak, garlic mashed potatoes, green beans. Her favorite. Lit candles. Wore her favorite shirt. The one she got me on our 3rd anniversary. She walked in confused. "What's the occasion?" she asked. "Just wanted to try being honest," I said. Her hand hovered over the back of the chair for a second too long. She sat, ate slowly, barely spoke. When the kids went to bed, I leaned over and whispered, "Tomorrow I want to play one more game." She looked up at me, eyes rimmed in red. "What kind of game?" I smiled, but there was nothing warm in it. 10 seconds of truth. She read the letter on our anniversary with the same face she wore at funerals. Pale, tight, desperate to appear composed. The envelope was plain, anonymous. Inside, a message from someone who claimed to watch her. It wasn't a threat. It was worse. Intimate. Familiar. The kind of letter only someone who had touched her skin and memorized her sleep sounds could have written. When she asked what it meant, I didn't raise my voice. I said, "You betrayed me, but I'm not the same man anymore." She left the porch in tears, but she didn't know the real game had already started. Across the city, my brother sat with an attorney, sliding over audio files and time-stamped transcripts. One recording was all it took to shatter the image she tried to maintain, her voice low and intimate, whispering, "He doesn't feel anything. He's already dead inside." Dead? Number just different. She thought silence would buy her time, but the silence was mine now. It wrapped around her like fog, thickening by the hour. She started asking odd questions, trying to gauge my mood. She checked the home cameras, the ones I'd installed years ago, thinking they were for protection. Now they were mirrors, and she flinched every time she looked into one. I changed, subtly but enough. Different cologne, deeper tone. I moved through the house like someone who had nothing left to explain. She noticed. She stopped sleeping in our bed, said she felt sick. The truth was she couldn't handle what I'd become. Unreadable, untouchable. A version of me she had no map for. Then came the voices. She started hearing things at night. Not her imagination. Not quite. I fed them in through the smart speaker. Short clips of her lover's voice, buried under the white noise. "You said you'd leave him." Or, "He doesn't suspect a thing." Her eyes shot open the first time it played. She asked if I heard anything. I said no, without looking up from my book. 2 days later, I saw her again. At the community festival, Gina, laughing like she hadn't tasted guilt in years, standing close to a man with a deer tattoo. The way she licked the spoon from his ice cream made my chest tighten. Not with heartbreak, with calculation. I didn't approach. I didn't speak. I took the kids and left. Back home, I collapsed on the kitchen floor. My daughter covered me with a blanket. My son rested his head in my lap and whispered, "You smell like home." Something clicked inside me then. A pivot from pain to purpose. I began crafting something colder. The next night I set the stage. A dinner just for her. Candles, steak, her favorite wine. In the center of the table, a small wooden box sealed with wax. "What's in it?" she asked. "The key to my forgiveness." Her hands trembled as she broke the seal. Inside, a glass bottle with a note. She unrolled it. "There is no forgiveness." Then a knock. At the door, a social worker. I had filed everything. Reports on her lover's mental instability, financial deceit, every detail lined up like chess pieces. She screamed, "You can't do this!" I turned to the kids. "Go pack your toys." From behind, "I'll kill myself." I looked her dead in the eyes. "That'll be the first time you're honest." We left that night with nothing but what mattered. Just the kids, a few bags of clothes, and the folder of documents I kept locked in the glove box. She stood in the driveway, barefoot and shaking, still wearing the apron from dinner. Her mascara bled into her cheekbones, and her voice cracked with words I'd stopped believing months ago. I didn't say a thing. I watched her shrink in the rearview mirror until the house disappeared with her in it. The new place wasn't big, but it was ours. A little rental with creaky floors and peeling paint that somehow felt more honest than anything we'd had before. I set up the kids' room with glow-in-the-dark stars, made them choose which blankets to bring from the old house, even though we both knew they wouldn't want anything that smelled like her. I hung a dream catcher by the window, the one my daughter made at school. She said it would keep the ghost lady away. I didn't correct her. I should have felt free. But it wasn't freedom. Not yet. The nights came cold and slow. I stayed up late stitching a ripped teddy bear for my son, watching the thread pull through the fabric like nerves. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was sharp. But it let me think. Gina hadn't tried to contact me. No calls, no texts, nothing. She was waiting. She knew anything she said now would only dig the hole deeper. Then came Grace. She was our neighbor, widow, ran the bookstore down the street. The kind of woman who wore oversized sweaters and smelled like cinnamon and ink. She brought over a pie, said it was blueberry, but apologized that it wasn't warm. The kids loved her instantly. They started calling her Aunt Grace before I even had time to decide what I thought of her. That first week, she read to them while I worked on the back porch. Her voice carried through the open window, smooth and steady. I could hear her say things like, "Heroes never walk alone, and even broken wings can lift." I didn't know if she was trying to reach me with those words or not, but they landed anyway. One night after she left, my daughter climbed onto my lap and whispered, "Do we live in the truth house now?" I didn't know how to answer, so I just nodded and kissed her forehead. The weight of that question stayed with me, but Gina wasn't finished, not by a long shot. One morning I found a paper plane on our porch, just sitting there, folded with sharp creases. It had been left on the welcome mat, no envelope, no message. Just a single line scribbled in the wing. "He'll come for you next." I didn't show the kids. I burned it in the sink. That same afternoon, I called my brother, told him to check into the tattooed man's background deeper than we had before, and what came back made my blood chill. Not just mental health issues. The man had priors, harassment, a dismissed restraining order. Former employers who described him as unpredictable, volatile, obsessive, but none of that had been filed properly, slipped through cracks. She brought that thing into our lives, and she had no idea how close she was to real danger. I didn't tell Gina what I found. I needed her fear, needed her unraveling. A week passed. Grace came by more often, always with something baked or borrowed. One night, while the kids built a blanket fort in the living room, she asked if I was okay. I said yes, the way men do when they're drowning, but too proud to grab the rope. She didn't push. just sat beside me while we listened to the kids laugh through pillows and sheets. She told a story that night, something about an old soldier who came home from war and built a cabin in the woods. She said, he stayed out there because he didn't trust the quiet anymore. And when she looked at me, I felt seen in a way I hadn't in years. I didn't want to feel that. Not yet. Not while Gina still lingered like smoke in the corners of my mind. Then on a rainy Tuesday, I caught Gina watching us. I saw the car parked down the street, lights off, wipers going. Her silhouette was unmistakable. She was spying, observing, like a guest at her own funeral. I didn't let her see me looking. I stood behind the curtain, just out of view. The kids were inside playing with Aunt Grace, laughing, living. Gina sat there for 20 minutes before driving off. No contact, no message. Just eyes full of everything she'd given up. That night I left another note on her windshield. No signature, no threat. Just a sentence that mirrored the one she left me. You don't get to haunt what you abandoned. The next morning the car was gone, but the storm wasn't. 2 days later the kids' school called. Gina had shown up during lunch recess, trying to speak to our daughter. Security had to escort her away. They said she seemed off, nervous, erratic. Said she smelled like wine. I filed a report and had her visitation blocked temporarily. It wouldn't last, but it was enough for now. That night I found my son drawing in the corner of the hallway. He held up a picture of our family, stick figures. He'd drawn me and his sister holding hands. Grace too, with a purple dress. And then, way off in the corner, a gray figure with no face. That's Mom, he said. She watches but doesn't come home. My breath caught in my throat. The truth was, she wasn't the one haunting us. I was. The day started normal. Cereal bowls, school shoes, a spilled glass of juice, and ended with her screaming through a locked door. But it didn't begin that way. I had just dropped the kids off, kissed their foreheads in the car and told them to be kind to the weird ones. I always say that. It used to be a joke. Now it's a reminder. On the drive back, I noticed a car tailing me through 2 turns. Too far back to be obvious. Too close to be random. I pulled into the driveway. It passed. Not Gina's car. Something older. Darker. I snapped a photo of the plates and sent it to my brother without a caption. Inside the house, things were changing again. Gina had vanished for days. No texts, no late-night calls, no letters slipped under my windshield. But she wasn't gone. She was building something. I could feel it. And I wasn't wrong. That afternoon, a letter showed up at my lawyer's office. A handwritten plea from her, begging for mediation. Not for custody, not yet. For truth. That was the word she used, as if the one thing she ran from could now save her. I said nothing. I waited. That night, I lit a single candle in the living room and turned off every light. The flickering made shadows crawl across the walls, and I sat there, still and waiting, like a hunter who already knew the exact trail his prey would take. I had hidden my phone inside the vent, recording every sound. My brother was feeding me updates hourly now. The man with the deer tattoo had gone dark. His apartment was empty. His social media scrubbed. Not gone. Just paused. Something was coming. The air knew it. So did Grace. She stopped by with fresh cornbread and a short story she said I'd like. I didn't read it. I was too focused on her eyes. Sharp, alert. She was starting to put pieces together, I could tell. I wasn't hiding this war from her very well, but she never asked. She just gave the kids extra hugs and asked if they wanted to paint birdhouses next weekend. The next night, I made changes in the house. Not visible ones. Deeper. Subtle. I replaced every framed photo of Gina with a drawing my daughter had made, even the ones crooked from old thumbtacks. I swapped out our duvet cover, changed the dish soap scent. Every detail Gina once touched was gone. If she came back now, the house would reject her like a bad organ. Then I heard it. 3 knocks. Not loud, just enough to raise every hair on the back of my neck. I opened the door slowly. She stood there soaked from the rain, no umbrella, clothes clinging to her like a drowned version of herself. Her lips trembled, not from cold, from the pressure she thought might finally break her. Her mascara had run again. She wasn't wearing her ring. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice hoarse. I didn't answer. I stepped aside. Let her in. She stood awkwardly near the couch, arms crossed like a child about to be scolded. I didn't offer her tea, didn't even motion to sit. I just leaned against the wall and watched. "You were right," she said, "about everything." Still, I said nothing. Her words didn't matter. I was only here for her reactions. She kept going. "I don't even know how it started. I thought I could fix it. But he wasn't who I thought he was. I was scared to tell you, scared you'd hate me, scared you'd leave. But I did leave," I finally said. My voice was low, steady. That cracked her. She dropped to the couch and sobbed, loud and sudden, as if the sound had been waiting in her throat for months. It should have made me feel something. It didn't. When she calmed down, I pulled a single envelope from my coat and placed it on the coffee table. Inside was a printed transcript of one of her phone calls. The one where she said, "He doesn't even see me anymore. He just exists." "I didn't know it was recorded," she whispered. "I didn't need it to be. I already knew," I said. Then I handed her another box, smaller than the last one. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside, a flash drive and a printed photo of the man with the deer tattoo. He was holding her hand in a parking lot, his face visible, his hand on her lower back. She looked happy, safe. "You think you're the only one who can disappear?" I said. "He's not hiding. I put him into hiding." She looked up at me with terror blooming behind her eyes. "You need help," she said, voice shaking. I tilted my head. "No," I said. "You do." Before she could respond, the front door opened. Not violently, just slowly. It was my brother. He stood there with a calm expression and handed me a folder. "Everything's in here," he said. Then to her, "You'll want to sit down." She didn't. She started backing toward the door. That's when she cracked. "You think you can scare me into being sorry?" she spat. "You think you can remake yourself into some cold monster and I'll just fall apart?" I smiled. "I don't want you to fall apart, Gina. I want you to understand that you already have." She lunged forward then, shoved the box off the table. The flash drive clattered across the floor. She screamed something. I don't even remember what. My brother stepped between us without raising a hand. Calm, controlled. That was our edge. She had chaos. We had patience. She tried to leave. I let her, but not before she turned back and hissed, "This isn't over." And she was right. It wasn't. But it was changing. Now she was the one caught in the mirror, screaming through glass. I looked down at the flash drive, picked it up and pocketed it. My daughter peeked out from the hallway, holding her favorite stuffed bunny. "Is the rain lady gone?" she asked. I nodded. Just shadows now. After she stormed out, the house exhaled like it had been holding its breath since the moment she stepped inside. I stood there in the hallway for a long time, staring at the spot where the flash drive had landed. Her voice still echoed faintly against the walls. Not the words, but the tone. Bitter, shaken. The sound of someone realizing control is slipping through their fingers, grain by grain. That night, the kids slept easy. My daughter curled into her blanket like a cat, the stuffed bunny tucked under one arm. My son whispered something in his sleep about a rocket ship. I stayed awake. Not out of fear. There was none left. I stayed up because the next move had to be perfect. I was done playing defense. The next morning, I made a list. It wasn't long. Just 3 items. Contact the social worker, secure the final piece from the therapist's report, prepare the dinner. That last one wasn't about food. I spent the day cleaning the house top to bottom, moved through every room like I was preparing a stage, dusted the piano she never played, polished the glass table she insisted on buying because it makes the room breathe. By sunset, the house gleamed, but it didn't feel like hers anymore. It hadn't for a long time. At exactly 7 o'clock, she pulled into the driveway again. Same frantic posture, same wrinkled sweater. She'd stopped wearing makeup, maybe on purpose, maybe out of defeat. She walked slower this time, opened the door herself and stepped in like she didn't want to be there, but couldn't stop herself. The addiction of unfinished business. The table was already set. 2 chairs, one dim overhead bulb, one wooden box in the center, smaller than the others, painted black, sealed with wax. She stared at it like it might bite. You wanted truth, I said. So this is a truth dinner. She sat across from me, hands clenched tight in her lap. Didn't touch the water I poured. Didn't make eye contact. I'm not playing another one of your games, she said. This isn't a game. This is the final act. For a while there was silence. Then she reached for the box. No, I said. Eat first. She blinked. What? You always hated eating in silence, I reminded her. So let's make this one count. She didn't move. So I picked up my fork and began eating. The steak was tender. The potatoes had rosemary. She watched me chew every bite like it was an accusation. Finally, reluctantly, she picked up her fork too. Ate just enough not to look suspicious. Old habits. When the plates were cleared, I slid the box toward her. The key to forgiveness, I said, echoing my words from before. She hesitated, then cracked the wax with her thumb. Inside, a glass bottle. Inside that, a tightly rolled note. She pulled it out, unfurled it. Her eyes locked on the single line inside. There is no forgiveness. Her breath hitched. She looked up, fury flickering like a candle barely holding flame. What the hell is this? She whispered. A mirror, I said. Then came the knock. Right on cue. She jumped. I opened the door. The same social worker from weeks ago stepped in. Calm, firm, holding a clipboard and a sealed envelope. Gina froze. I didn't. What's happening? She stammered. You asked for truth, I said. Here's yours. The social worker handed her the envelope. Inside, a formal report detailing every psychiatric concern regarding her lover. Addendum notes from his former partners. A signed affidavit from his ex, describing threats, manipulation, and violent outbursts. None of it pretty. All of it legal. He told me he was better, she said, voice small. He also told you I was dead inside, I said. But here I am. She looked like she wanted to scream again. But the walls were closing in faster now. The ceiling had dropped a little lower since last time. Her voice had lost its weight. You set me up, she whispered. No, I said. You walked into this all by yourself. I just made sure the lights were on. She tried to leave. The social worker stepped aside. No resistance, just protocol. But as she reached the threshold, I said the one thing I knew she couldn't walk away from. They're not yours anymore. She turned sharp as a blade. You can't. I did. Legally, temporarily, and the hearing's scheduled. Every page in that folder backs me up. Every lie, every dollar you siphoned, every name you let our daughter hear when she was supposed to be asleep. You wanted to rewrite the rules? I've written the ending. Her voice cracked. They're my kids. They're kids, I said, not bargaining chips. She stood there shaking, breathing like she'd just run miles with a knife in her side. I'll kill myself, she said again, quieter this time. The threat wasn't new, but this time, there was no rage behind it, just rot. I didn't flinch. That'll be the first time you're honest. Then she finally walked out. No slam of the door, no final word, just absence. That night, the kids and I stayed up a little later than usual. My daughter made popcorn. My son insisted we build a fort in the living room again. I let them, even when the popcorn spilled, even when they jumped on the couch cushions and knocked over a lamp. The house felt alive again. Not clean, not perfect, but real. Around 10, Grace stopped by, said she saw Gina's car leave fast. She didn't ask questions, just helped me fold blankets, laughing softly when my son tried to scare her with a sock puppet. When she read their bedtime story, her voice drifted through the hall like music from another life. And when she reached the final line, every hero has the power to choose, I felt something pull in my chest, like a thread being tied. I choose me, I said, not meaning to say it out loud. Grace looked up from the book. The kids looked at me too. And for the first time in months, my son grinned. Now we're a team. She tried to claw her way back in with the same desperation of someone already halfway buried. Her voicemail came first, a cracked apology wrapped around a threat. Said she missed the kids. Said she missed me. Said she was getting help now. Finally, I didn't respond. I saved it with the rest. Then came the flowers. Grace brought them inside, puzzled. No card, she said, though I knew. Yellow tulips, white roses, her favorite mix. Gina wasn't sorry. She was rewriting, pretending the final scene hadn't already played. But the curtains were closed. A few days later, she showed up at the school, said she wanted a weekend with the kids, something special. My daughter panicked, called from the counselor's office. I got there fast enough to keep it from becoming a scene. Gina didn't scream this time, just looked at me like a stranger had taken my face. "You're not the man I married," she whispered. "You're right," I told her. "That man's dead. You made sure of it." I filed the emergency custody order the next morning. Everything was lined up. The therapist's report, school incident, the lies, the theft. It wasn't a petition, it was a warhead. And it detonated exactly the way I needed it to. Still, I felt nothing. Not peace, not closure, because there was one piece left to move, the man with the deer tattoo. I hadn't heard his name in weeks. No sign of him. Until just before sunrise, when the motion alert buzzed, a figure by the back fence, tall, still, waiting. I didn't step outside. I didn't call the police. I just watched. Let the night do what it does. He was watching her now, not me. That's when I knew. She was afraid. Of him, of everything she thought she could control. She didn't just lose her family. She'd invited in something darker, and now it was watching her, too. So I let it happen. Let her burn. Her social media vanished. No job posts, no photos, no birthday messages. I heard through my brother her savings were drained, her lover gone. Maybe stole from her, maybe worse. But she didn't press charges. Couldn't or wouldn't. Didn't matter. That Saturday, I took the kids to the lake. Grace came, brought sandwiches. My daughter made flower crowns. My son chased frogs. It was still, simple, real. Grace read a book under the trees while I just watched them be kids. And for the first time, I wasn't watching from behind glass. Mid-afternoon, I got a text from an unknown number. Just 2 words. "I'm done." No name, no context, no need. I didn't reply. Didn't tell Grace. Didn't tell the kids. I just watched the sun lower behind the trees and let the text fade from the screen. That night, Grace stayed for dinner. She helped clean, then read bedtime stories. Her voice moved through the house like music. When she reached the last line, "Every hero has the power to choose," I said it aloud without thinking. "I choose me." Grace looked up. The kids stared at me wide-eyed. Then my son grinned. Now we're a team. Later, when the house was still, Grace sat across from me at the kitchen table. She asked if I'd ever forgive Gina. I didn't hesitate. "No," I said, "and I don't need to." The silence between us wasn't cold, just real. Outside, past the fence, the dark stretched on. It always would, but it didn't matter anymore. The story was hers now. Smoke and ruin. And this was the life she'd never touch again. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for being with me today and listened. And if you liked my story, please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment below what you think about all this, and what would you do if you were me. Also, don't forget to check my other stories in description below.